Mr. Chair.
Stuart Nash.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove and Phil Twyford and a number have alluded to, we are supporting this bill, but Mr. Chair, I do have a couple of questions around this. I suppose, Mr. Chair, if I may make a comment, and I don't know if I'm allowed to or not. You know, this is my 4th year in this House, and I've done a few committee stages, and every now and again, members have relevant questions. And I must admit, Peter Dunn, who I think has been in this House probably longer than anyone, when this is one of his bills and he sits in the chair, he listens intently, and more often than not, if there is a genuine question, he stands up and he answers it. And I thought that's what committee stage was about, but maybe I'm a little old-fashioned. I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, when you were in the chair, and this was a bill that you were passing through Parliament, you would try and do the same.
Order, you're not allowed to bring me in.
Oh, sorry. A former Labour Cabinet Minister who is now a Deputy Speaker, I suppose. Mr. Chair, there are a couple of clauses here.
Didn't help.
Clause 6, for example, it just talks about, this is just an amended, a part of an amendment, Schedule 1 under Kiwisaver scheme rules. All it does is it just adds the term, well, it changes the words a little bit, but all it does is it adds the term under Section 6.
Order. Mr. Twyford, I'm trying to...
Under Section 226. Now, I'm not even too sure why that's in there, because it talks about, in Clause 6, about Crown contributions, even before the amended Section 6, Clause 8, 4A. It talks about Crown contributions anyway. All Section 626 does in the bill is define what Crown contributions are. So I'm not too sure why that's relevant, but anyway, that's part of it. But I suppose one of the things that I would like to talk about to start with is Clause 5B. Now, this talks about protection from non-compliance, and this is with regard to obviously the new amendments around the Homestart policy put forward by this government, and this has added a whole new section on the end of the Kiwisaver bill. So before, the Kiwisaver Act 2006, it ended at Clause 238. And this is a new clause at the end of the bill. There are a couple of things that I just think we need to be very careful about, because what we have come through, not just a global financial crisis, but what we have seen is what I believe is a lot of unsavoury, unethical, or whatever behaviour that went on in our own market. And we tend to talk about the global financial crisis as one of the great catastrophes of the modern economy here, but actually we forget that it was actually a lot of the stuff that went on in the mezzanine finance sector that actually destroyed between, I haven't heard an exact figure, but somewhere between $4 and $6 billion of savings out of Kiwis' back pockets. So the global financial crisis might have led to that. But in New Zealand, the rules around mezzanine finance and prospectuses and investor statements, I think we all would agree, was quite lax to the point where you can buy. Yep, I'm coming to this. To the point where people really didn't know what was going on and they were misled. So if you look at 239, this is, as mentioned, this is a new clause to the Kiwisaver Act. And the slight concern I have is it talks about non-compliance with an enactment related to securities is ignored if non-compliance, subclause A, results from enactment of Section 6. All Section 6, Mr. Chair, is in the Kiwisaver Act, as it outlines who is eligible for Kiwisaver and the obligations of the employer and employee. You know, if you're a Kiwi and you count as an employer, you're an employee, etc., etc. So there's no problems there. But when we talk about non-compliance here, you're protected from non-compliance. And we talked about this a little bit in the Select Committee. And that's a prospectus that is registered, subclause B, 1 here, a prospectus that is registered on Securities Act 2008 before April 2015. So what I'm reading this to mean, and I could be wrong, is that there doesn't have to be a prospectus or basically a prospectus or an investor statement or a product disclosure under the Financial Markets Conduct Act if it is lodged on or before April 2015, Mr. Chair. And it's just a little bit confusing because maybe I am reading this wrong, but if I'm reading it wrong, then so will perhaps a lot of other people, because I sat on the Select Committee. But what we need to do is ensure that the people who are putting their money into Kiwisaver or the Kiwisaver providers are mitigating the risk, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Nash.
Are mitigating the risk enough so people can, I suppose, not have to suffer the risk of incompetence or negligence. That's what I'm trying to say, I suppose. And that was a long way of saying it. But that is a major risk, I think, that we now do not have to face, and I hope we never have to again. There are a couple of other things that I would like to talk about in this bill, Mr. Chair, which cause a little bit of concern and a little bit of frustration, to be honest. If we look at Clause 3, Clause 4, and the Clause 5, just the beginning of 5, they're sort of remedial. For example, we look at Clause 4, Section 4 amended. This is just an interpretation of salaries or wages. We've talked about veterans in the past, and Mr. Goff did, and I think Jan Logie did, but it says here in paragraph A1, replace 6B to 6BD. Well, I did what I was instructed to do. I went to the Income Tax Act to find out what 6BD was, and it said it's been repealed. So I had a look at these, the statute books, which are supposed to be, you know, if the computer systems go down and the lights go out, we can go to these. Well, it's not in here. So I went online, and it said on the online version, 6BD has been repealed. And then I went, how could this be? Because it mentions this in this Act. So I went to the top of the Act online, and it says this Act may not incorporate some of the amendments that have gone through Parliament. How frustrating is that for a member who's trying to do a little bit of work to find out what the changes in legislation are actually going to mean, to find it's not even there? Now, maybe it has been repealed, and maybe I can't imagine it's been put back in another piece of legislation. But if it does, and this is just a little bit sloppy, if BD doesn't exist, and I can show you the piece of legislation, then why is it even in here? I found this a little bit frustrating, and I suppose, Mr. Chair, it goes back to a lot of what we've been talking about for a number of weeks now, and that is, I suppose, the sloppiness of a lot of the legislation that we are now seeing in front of this House. And I suppose I'm going to jump around a little bit here. We can go to the title. Because all I'm seeing, and a lot of the legislation I'm speaking on, is amendments, or if not amendments, then it's a legislation to tidy up sloppy legislation that has gone before it under this government. So, you know, the title of this could be, yet again, tidying up sloppy legislation bill. And especially around veterans' affairs. And Mr. Goff did talk about this, but goodness me, Mr. Chair, if I was a veteran and I had read this Act, well, as it came out in was it 2013, 2012, Mr. Goff? 2014, and we're already amending it. And now I was in the select committee, and I said to the representative of the Defence Force who was on the committee, I said, now, are there many veterans who are going to be affected by this? And she said, don't worry, we'll communicate with them, we know who they are, and we'll do this well. And I said, please be sure you do, because part of the major concern I had about this is it got the feeling that this part of the bill was sneaking in under the Kiwisaver Homestart portions of this bill, because this is part of the government's core policy. The government knew that the opposition parties would go hard on this, which we have done, but then in there, in the back of it, is the stuff about veterans. And it actually makes quite a bit of difference, because what it actually does is if you have a look at this, Section CF1, this is in the Income Tax Act, it talks about a veteran's pension, and it finishes it. So what is actually doing now? It's inserting a subclause, so a veteran's pension or a retirement lump sum paid. So what it's actually doing, Mr. Chair, is it's taking a lump sum that's been paid to a veteran and now taxing it at a point. It's like giving something and then taking it back. So what this actually does is it means that veterans who have received these lump sums are now subject to taxation. They're working for families, entitlements change. Their student loan entitlement, or their retirement to pay these things back changes, and everything that an ACC lump sum payment would change. And the thing that I find a little bit ironic about this, Mr. Chair, is we have just debated in this House, and we're debating this out in the public at the moment, sending 143 troops away to wear the New Zealand badge and serve in Iraq. And yet what we seem to be doing with those we choose the most, with those whose battles line the walls of this chamber, You're saying, sorry guys, we got it wrong again. The money we gave you because you incapacitated, and this is another part of the bill, we're now actually going to take some back. Oh, don't worry about it, we got it wrong. In fact, worse still, we're going to sneak it in under legislation.
Jamie.